Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community. The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It with your host, B.J. Williams.
We have a great show for you today, including a talk with Oklahoma author Merline Lovelace about one of her short stories, April Moon. But first, Doug Benton is going to talk with Susie Beasley about a book Susie enjoyed.
Hi, Susie, you with me again here?
Yes, I am.
Brought another book to talk about with an intriguing title.
Intriguing title indeed.
If you want to walk on water, you've got to get out of the boat.
That's
it's by
right.
John Ortberg. Tell us about it. What is it?
Well, this is a book that it is marketed as a Christian living. However, individuals or persons that just was interested in other ideas of approaching and problem solving and dealing with day-to-day life, especially now with so many things that are uncertain. Ortberg has written some other books, but this one I picked up and I thought, wow, well, people are saying if you walk on water, well, you have to actually get out of the boat. You have to, plant yourself on terra firma and say, hey, if I have something I need to deal with, how do I go about dealing with that? This book kind of gives you a path to do that. Mm-hmm. It kind of brings you to a thinking process, a process of problem solving, facing fear, even though as adults we tend to say, I'm not scared, I'm not this, but there are fears and doubts that we don't want to admit that we have. And this kind of sets you on a course of problem solving. And I think that's one reason why I was drawn to it, because it kind of like, well, at the end of the day, if you want to read something that after looking at the news or getting in 5 o'clock traffic, this kind of puts things in perspective and centers you.
Yeah, it's real easy to say you're not worried about things in your life or in your work at 6 o'clock in the evening, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes the story's a little different.
It can keep you up at night.
Yeah.
It can keep you up at night. And I think that people tend to try to gravitate toward a quick fix. Well, there are really no quick fixes because it's a continuum. Whether we're in a different station in life as far as financially, whether we're in a different station in life as far as our age or anything like that, if we're a parent, we all have to come to the decision-making process of getting on with things. We can't just let them kind of bottle up and all that. This helps you to kind of clear the field.
Yeah.
Like if you're bowling about it, you're going to have to go ahead and clear those pins out. They can't just stay in the little hopper all the time. Yeah. But Ortberg, he has put together a really worthwhile text. It's easy to read. It is not trite. It is not difficult. And I think that people will probably, go to it and enjoy it.
Okay, once again, the title is If You Want to Walk on Water, You've Got to Get Out of the Boat.
By John.
And it's by John Ortberg. Susie, thanks a lot for bringing it in. I think it'll be interesting to a lot of our readers.
Okay,
thanks, folks.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of your Metropolitan Library System. Experts tell us it's never too early to begin reading to a child. If you spend just 20 minutes a day reading to a child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're helping that child to prepare to learn how to read. Visit us at the Metropolitan Library System and let us help you select just the right books for you and your family. And be sure and visit our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
With me now is Doug Benton, and Doug, there's a brand new translation of Gilgamesh out.
I haven't read that since grad school.
Well, it is a beautiful translation. It is very clear, it's very easy to read. I think the best thing about Stephen Mitchell's book is that he has a very lengthy introduction where he walks you through the entire epic. So that you have an understanding of it before you even get into it. And then you can read it without extensive footnotes, although he does provide a great deal of that. He's a very meticulous scholar. He's also a pretty good poet. So it's just enjoyable all the way around.
It's not Dryden-esque rhyming verse, is it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no, absolutely not. He explained what he used, but I've got a little section here that sort of explains the whole epic, because Rilke said that Gilgamesh is really an epic on the fear of death. And the story is, Gilgamesh is a powerful king, but he's oppressing his people. So the gods send him his equal to sort of balance things out so he won't oppress his people, who is Enkidu, who's a wild man, gets tamed by one of the priestesses of Ishtar. And the two of them go out merrily killing monsters, which offends the gods. So the gods kill Enkidu. And then, of course, Gilgamesh is so upset because he feels for Enkidu pretty much the way that David felt for Jonathan in the Bible, the love that surpasses the love of women, sort of thing. And this is also the first time he's encountered death. So here's Gilgamesh's reaction to the death of his dearly beloved. My friend, my brother, whom I loved so dearly, who accompanied me through every danger. Enkidu, my brother, whom I loved so dearly, who accompanied me through every danger. The fate of mankind has overwhelmed him. For 6 days I would not let him be buried, thinking, if my grief is violent enough, perhaps he will come back to life again. For 6 days and 7 nights I mourned him, until a maggot fell out of his nose. Then I was afraid. I was frightened by death, and I set out to roam the wilderness. I cannot bear what happened to my friend. I cannot bear what happened to Enkidu. So I roam the wilderness in my grief. How can my mind have any rest? My beloved friend has turned into clay. My beloved Enkidu has turned into clay. And won't I too lie down in the dirt like him and never rise again? So it's, in the end, Gilgamesh goes, the flood story is told. Now this is something that was written about 2100 BC about, they think, a real king of the city of Uruk. But he goes to visit the only human that the gods let live, and in order to become immortal. Of course, he doesn't get there. And we're out of time, so you're going to have to read the book.
Well, I have to read it again. It's been a long time.
Right. Well, it's a wonderful book, Gilgamesh by Stephen Mitchell. I can heartily recommend it to anybody interested in poetry or great epics. Coming up next, we've got Kids Corner, and Kelly Rhea will be talking with Rosemary Zarsky about a book for our young adults.
The book today is very exciting. It's by Neil Shusterman, right? And what's the title?
It's called The Dark Side of Nowhere.
The Dark Side of Nowhere. Well, that sounds kind of intriguing. I wonder what that could be about.
Aliens and humans and shots, and is one species really better than another? And what do you do when you find out that you're an alien?
And this is all in one young adult book, huh?
It is, and Jason, who is the lead character, has always taken his shots every month, and nobody ever worried about it until one day a friend of his dies, and all of a sudden he and the group of friends that
Jason runs with,
they all have to take shots every week, and it's because, as he finds out, they are actually aliens with human DNA wrapped around their genes.
Wow.
And so they're just trying to keep the two together so that they won't show that they're the aliens until they're ready.
So this starts out as a normal world, and then as it progresses, things start to go awry, and that's when he's aware of something up.
Because all of his little group of friends are being trained to be warriors, and eventually he gets to see his friend who he thought had died, who hadn't died. He just totally converted into being a warrior.
A warrior alien.
Right. Wow. And it also is a story of a boy's travel to manhood. He is a natural-born leader, but he doesn't think he is. And it's the story of how he becomes a leader.
Oh, and he finds himself in his strength and.
And of course, there's a woman in the story that helps him do this. You know, she can outpitch any boy in the school, but she's her own woman. She does her own thinking, and she is a very good investigator, and that's how he is able to find out so much so fast.
The characters are really well developed.
Very well developed, yes. And you know, some of them are stereotypical in the supporting characters, but even they have a few surprises in them. So it's really a well-written, interesting, I read it all in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. That's
excellent. Well, we think that you'll enjoy The Dark Side of Nowhere by Neil Shusterman. You can find it in your favorite library or in your local bookstore.
Thanks, Rosemary and Kelly. Coming up next, we've got Doug Benton, Shelley Ziegler-Hill, and Elizabeth Kessler looking at a videotape that you can rent and watch yourself.
So what do you think? We want to talk about another movie?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's
We've
do
seen
it.
one. We watched one of Liz's choices, science fiction movie. Tell us about it.
Stargate, and it stars Kurt Russell and James Spader. And what they do is they find some ancient Egyptian artifact, and it's actually a time, or not a time portal, but like a wormhole to another planet. And so, of course, they send the military in, and they go to this planet and find these people that are actually human, and there's a revolution that starts and so forth. Did you guys like it?
I really liked it. The thing I like most about it is that even if you're not a sci-fi per se fan, I think you can still get a lot out of this movie. There's still a lot of story and drama that don't necessarily involve the sci-fi aspect.
You know, even if you're into like ancient Egyptian culture, I mean, it had a lot of that background in there
Exactly.
too. I really like
It plays
that.
almost more like a historical adventure
Right.
story than like standard science fiction. Now, is this connected to the television series Stargate SG?
It is. The characters are a little bit have changed a little bit in the series, but yeah, it's still connected
It's the-
to MGM basically.
Yeah, the origin of
right,
that series.
right. And do you guys want to see a clip?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, this clip, I believe Kurt Russell's character and James Spader's character are just about to get captured.
Okay, let's take a look.
Okay.
Escaped from a dying world looking for a way to extend his own life. His body decaying and weak, he couldn't prevent his own demise. Apparently his whole species was becoming extinct. So he traveled, searched the galaxies looking for a way to cheat death. And look here, he came to a world rich with life, where he encountered a primitive race, humans. A species which, with all his powers and knowledge, he could maintain indefinitely. He realized within a human body he had a chance for a new life. Now, he apparently found a young boy. It says, as the frightened villagers ran, night became day. Curious and without fear, he walked towards the light.
Okay, there we got a look at the starship landing there.
Yes.
As you can see, it's kind of, there are moments when it's kind of dark and moody, and that kind of complements the lighter action scenes, I think.
Yes. And what's really amazing is that James Spader usually plays bad roles.
He does.
Yeah.
He plays the mean character.
Yeah,
In
he
this one,
does.
he's the good guy.
He is the
for
good guy,
once.
yes.
Really,
Yeah.
for once.
It's
Okay.
I
very
thought that was
nice.
refreshing.
It's a lot of fun. It's Stargate,
Yes.
directed by Roland Emmerich. Thanks for bringing it in, Liz. Thanks.
for
We'll do this
watching.
again.
Thanks, Doug, Shelley, and Elizabeth. Coming up next, we have another teen volunteer who will be talking about books. Every summer, we encourage teenagers to volunteer at the local library and help us with our summer reading. And this week, Heidi Port is going to be talking with Sophie Carroll about a book that she really enjoyed this summer in between her volunteer stints.
I'm here with Sophie Carroll, and she is going to talk to us today about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. So, Sophie, what was your favorite character?
There's this guy named Zaphod Beeblebrox, and he had 2 heads and 3 arms.
So I'm assuming he wasn't human.
No. He was on Earth for a little bit, and then he posed as a human for a while, and then he went and added another head and added another arm.
Oh my goodness. So what was your favorite part of this book?
There's this time they had to demolish the Earth to make way for an intergalactic highway. And so the people were all like, what's going on? And so the aliens that were demolishing it said, we've had the plans for 50 years. You could have gone to Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star, and looked it up. But they were like, but we've never even left the planet. And then the aliens were like, oh, that's your problem.
So were there aliens living on Earth or only humans?
It was only humans, and then there was like one alien guy, and he got the main character, whose name was Arthur Dent. He got him off the planet.
And why did he choose Arthur Dent?
He was just there, and he was like one of his friends. Like, the alien had been stuck on the planet for 15 years, so he had time to make plenty of friends. So Arthur was one of his best friends, I guess, and so he took him along.
Wow. And so has this author written any other books, or is this the only one?
He wrote the Hitchhiker's Trilogy, which actually contains 4 books. There's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Life, the Universe, and Everything, and then there's So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. And then he wrote a couple of other books too, but I'm not really quite sure on those titles.
And so have you read all of his books, or?
No, I put them on reserve at the library though.
So you're waiting for them to come. Very good. So this book sounds like it's humorous. Did you find it to be funny, or?
Yeah, it was really funny. Like, there was this one time when this really depressed robot was talking to a spaceship, and then the ship got so depressed it committed suicide.
The spaceship did?
Yeah, it committed suicide. It was funny.
So are you feeling kind of like now you're on the lookout for aliens, or is it pretty realistic?
No, it's just to be funny, basically.
And who would you recommend read this book? Is it?
It's like mostly everybody, because it's just so different. It's out there. Like, mice are the most intelligent creatures on the Earth, followed by dolphins, and then humans are only the 3rd most intelligent creatures on the planet Earth.
Oh my goodness.
So,
well, Sophie, thank you so much for bringing The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to us, and I'm actually going to check it out myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi and Sophie. Merline Lovelace is an Oklahoma writer who spent 23 years in the Air Force. She served in Vietnam, at the Pentagon, and in bases all over the world. And when she retired, she decided to move to Oklahoma and start writing. And she has done so very, very successfully. She has a tremendous number of books in print. In fact, her latest book that is available now on the bookstores is called Untamed. You can find it and take a look at how well Merline writes. Last spring, I was at the Oklahoma Centennial Book Festival at OCU and was able to talk with Merline about a short story she had written that was included in a collection. Merline's short story was entitled April Moon. I think you will enjoy what she had to say about writing.
What was the inspiration for Sailor's Moon?
Well, I did a lot of research for another book on the War of 1812, and I was so interested in the whole concept of impressment, how the British just would go aboard American ships and pull off American sailors, claim they were deserters. And this had been going on for several years, and a relationship between the United States and Britain kept getting tenser and tenser over this whole issue of impressment. And I guess I didn't realize the background for it because Britain and France had been at war for almost a decade. And they had so many maritime losses as well as casualties on the ground, and they were trying to get replacements for their ships. So they were just pulling Americans right off the ships, and finally it did result in the War of 1812. But they estimate about 10,000 Americans were impressed by the British prior to 1812.
And as you point out in the short story, having our president complain didn't seem to accomplish very much in returning them.
Yeah, well, we were still a very young nation at that point, and I think not being a Navy person, I'm not sure what kind of a Navy we had, but it was very small and very fledgling. So we had been protesting and to no regard diplomatically. So the first shots were fired, and we went to war with this huge behemoth of Britain. And as you know, the War of 1812 was, some people call it the Forgotten War, but that was when the British sacked Washington and burned the White House, and Dolly Madison escaped with George Washington's portrait that was just down at the museum, down in the Modern Art.
The Oklahoma City Art Museum.
Yeah, it was a fabulous exhibit. I really enjoyed seeing that. So it brought that book to life for me.
Now, this is a short story or a novella. It's in a collection. Is your approach to writing something this short different from writing a novel?
It is, because I do a lot of pre-planning and plotting, and I structure my books based on how long they need to be, so I want to get a lot of action in there, but you have to really compress it, and that's about 100 manuscript pages, yeah, about that. And so I try to structure the scene so you can still build a relationship between the characters and have some action, but you have to do it quickly in 100 pages.
And actually, the time, even in the novella, is very compressed because it takes place in a very short period of time.
In fact, that concept was, that was what sold the book. One of the other authors came up with the idea of having 3 books that all take place on the same night, the night of the full moon, different parts of the world. And so one's in Scotland, one's in England, and one's on the high seas with the Americans. So we had fun with it. We had a good time.
So you had actually done the research for something else and were able to utilize it for another book.
Right, yeah. I was working on the second book in my Oklahoma series, and it's set around I was leading up to, the father was fought with Old Hickory against the British in the Battle of New Orleans. So I was doing a lot of research on the War of 1812. And I thought, I got to use this in another book, so I put it in this one.
Well, it was very entertaining. It was a little brief. I was kind of disappointed. Oh, wait, you know, we're at the end.
Yes. Well, but the benefit is that you get 3 books in one. And Susan King and Miranda Jarrett, great authors, and I've enjoyed all their books. Susan King writes lots of books set in Scotland, and she's very well known. And Miranda Jarrett has done a lot of American colonial books as well as British books.
Now, you said something about your second Oklahoma book, so I take it you've got some more books coming up.
I am so excited about this. This is my first book, came out last year, and it was set 1806, 1807 time frame. So the second book is called Untamed, and it comes out in October. And it's set in 1832-33 at Fort Gibson. And the main character in this one is the son of the characters that were in the first Oklahoma book. So the series is evolving to where it's sort of a chronicle of military history in Oklahoma. That wasn't how I envisioned it originally. It was just going to be Oklahoma history, but I was so fascinated by all the aspects of the military of what. And Fort Gibson at one point was the westernmost military outpost in the United States. And so we went over there and we did a lot of research over there and talked to the curators, and I was just fascinated by the whole concept.
Well, you have commented before how wrenching it is to have to leave out so much information when you do research. I would think that that's not quite as much a problem if you're doing a whole series. If you're going to start in the early 1800s and work your way through 2004.
Yes. Well, in fact, the last book, the first book in the series is based on this legend of the Vikings that came up and the rune stones at Heavener State Park. And my husband and I are going to, next month, we're going to the Baltic, on a Baltic cruise. I'm doing all this research on Vikings. So my last book in the series is going to be some kind of a time travel where they call up this holographic image of the Viking at Heavener State Park. So I'm just having a blast with this whole series. And I've got one planned for Pancho Villa and the Raid that was staged. It was staged out of Texas, but the Fort Sill, the troops from Fort Sill participated in that expedition under General Pershing. And I've got one planned for the soldiers that patrolled the land runs and from their side of the story. And so Oklahoma just has such a fascinating history.
Yeah. And I think very few of us think of it as having a military history. We're sort of vaguely aware we were involved somehow in the Civil War, but we don't realize that soldiers have been trooping across this particular part of the world a long time.
And especially at Fort Gibson, because it was also the terminus of the Trail of Tears. And so the soldiers at Fort Gibson had the task of trying to settle disputes between the tribes and what areas that they were going to be resettled in, and keeping the white settlers out. Already in 1836, when the Trail of Tears occurred, already the whites were trying to incur into Oklahoma Indian territory at the time. Indian country, they called it then. And so they had a tough time. But it was Colonel Arbuckle was the commander there, and he took pride in the fact that no Native American Indian was ever killed by one of his soldiers at Fort Gibson during all the time he was there.
Well, that's pretty impressive given what has happened after that in some of the reservation areas. And it's amazing the number of really well-known, I could almost say infamous Indians have ended up on reservations here in Oklahoma at one time or another. You might want to write a series about those as well.
Well, the third book in the series is called She Shot Him Dead. And it's about the U.S. Marshals out of Fort Smith, and when we were Indian Territory, Oklahoma, they were then. So I'm just having such a great time with this series.
It sounds like it.
One of the interesting points, talking about research, when I was reading up on Fort Gibson, is it was the furthermost outpost of the U.S. military at the time, and every graduating class, every West Point graduating class from 1825 on had an officer serving at the post. So I think, I'm trying to remember some of the officers that served, but a lot of the well-known that went on to be generals later on in the Civil War and stuff. And it was also because they had all these handsome young lieutenants. They used to have balls there at Fort Gibson, and they said women from as far away as Fort Smith would just pack their ball gowns in a saddlebag and trot over the mountains to come to Fort Gibson to the balls.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, I hope that you'll come back in October and tell us more.
I shall. Great.
Thanks very much.
I know it is wet, and the sun is not sunny.
Hi. My name is Jose Jimenez of your Metropolitan Library Commission. You know, most experts tell us that if you just spend 20 minutes a day reading to your child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're also preparing that child to learn how to read. Check with the experts at your Metropolitan Library for suggestions on just the right books for you and your family. And visit us at our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
Okay, Doug, it's almanac time.
Yes, it is. There were some interesting birthdays this week. October 4th, 1862 was the birthday of Edward Stratemeyer. Not a familiar name to most people, and certainly not a great American writer, but a significant one. Stratemeyer in the late 19th century made a good living writing adventure stories for boys, very Robert Louis Stevenson adventure stories. But he was able to turn out so many. What he started doing was hiring other writers to continue series that he had begun. He would write 3 or 4 books in the series, then do outlines of maybe a dozen more books, pass them on. And this turned into the Bobbsey Twins and Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and Tom Swift and just about anything you can remember from our childhoods, the ones that were still in existence at that time.
Great.
Oh, that was Stratemeyer.
And you can check this out on the web at www.metrolibrary.org. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time.